Dear Father, Mother, brothers, sisters in Jesus Christ, the game cannot be polished without friction, nor the person perfected without trials. Confucius. In a book called This I Believe There Serials of Essays by Famous People, they describe episodes from their lives that affected them deeply. For example, James DuPont of the DuPont Company recalls an episode that happened to him when he was 7 years old. One midnight, he woke out of a dead sleep. His mother was sobbing loudly. It was the first time he would ever heard her cry. He describes the incident this way. My dad's voice was low and troubled as he tried to comfort mother, and in their anguish, they both forgot about the nearness of my bedroom. I overheard them. Then he adds, while their problem has long since been solved and forgotten, the big discovery I made that night is still right with me. DuPont's discovery was this: life is not all hearts and flowers. It's hard and pure much of the time. I'm sure all of us can relate to that 7-year-old boy lying in bed listening to his mother cry. We do remember hearing our mother cry. We do remember the impact it had on us. We do remember how it made us aware, perhaps for the first time, that life is not hearts and flowers. It's sometimes pure and hard also. And so we can relate to the words of James in today's Gospel. And he says, if anyone wants to come with me, he must forget himself, carry his cross and follow me. In other words, suffering and sorrow are life hurricanes and floods. They are a part of life. There's no way we can escape them. But then Jesus goes on to say something remarkable. He says, whoever wants to save his own life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for me and for the gospel will save it. In other words, Jesus says the important thing is life is not the sorrow and suffering that befall us. The important thing is how we respond to them. The important thing is what we do about them. Maybe we can't avoid sorrow and suffering, but we can do something with them. We can turn them into something constructive, not destructive. We can turn them into something that is life-giving, not death-dealing. We can turn them into something that makes us better, not bitter. Take the case of Eugene O'Neill. Until the age of 25, O'Neill was a failure. His life was without purpose, without discipline, without direction. Then one day, he took seriously ill and was taken to a hospital. It was during his long stay in the hospital that he got a chance to do something he had never done before. He got a chance to think about his life and where it was headed. It was also in the hospital that he discovered that he had talent for writing plays. Eventually, Eugene O'Neill recovered, took up a writing career, and went on to revolutionize American drama. It all happened because O'Neill reacted to sorrow and suffering a constructive way. He responded to them in a life-giving way. Take also the case of Golda Meir. As a young person, Golda Meir felt depressed because she was not beautiful, she wrote. It was only much later that I realized that not being beautiful was a blessing in disguise. It forced me to develop inner resources. I came to understand that women who can't lead on their beauty have to work hard and therefore have the advantage. In other words, Golda Meir accepted her cross. She did not cry out against it. She did not fret over it or resent it. She acknowledged it, picked it up, and carried it courageously. Golda Meir went on to become the first woman Prime Minister of Israel. Finally, take the case of Oscar Wilde. At the height of his writing career, he was convicted of a charge against morals. After he returned from prison, he could no longer write superficial comedies. He no longer had hearts for the furious Wilde wrote in what has to be one of the most beautiful lines of poetry ever written. Where sorrow is, there is holy ground. And in another beautiful line, he wrote, how else but through the broken heart may the Lord Christ enter in. Oscar Wilde used his humiliating experience as an occasion to grow and become better in the spirit of today's gospel. He turned it into an experience that was life-giving, not death-dealing. The stories of Eugenie O'Neill, Golda Meir, and Oscar Wilde illustrate that the important thing in life is not the sorrow and suffering that befall us. The important thing is how we respond to them. If we refuse to accept sorrow and suffering, if we refuse to pick up these crosses and carry them, we end up losing our life. On the other hand, if we pick up them and carry them courageously, as Jesus did, we can turn them into something positive. We can turn them into something life-giving, just as Eugenie O'Neill, Golda Meir, and Oscar Wilde did. And so, by way of summary, life, the 7-year-old in our opening story, sooner or later we discover that life is not all hearts and flowers. It's often pure and hard. But we discover something else. Sooner or later, we also discover that sorrow and suffering are not necessarily death-dealing. Thanks to Jesus and the Gospels, they can be life-giving. God often used sorrow and suffering to fashion us into better people, warmer people, humbler people, more compassionate people, and more understanding people. Sorrow and suffering can open our eyes to a richer, more beautiful life than we ever dreamed possible. The poet Robert Browning Hamilton sums up the spirit of today's Gospels in these words. I walked a mile with pleasure. She scattered all the way, but left me none the wiser for all she had to say. I walked a mile with sorrow, and ne'er a word said she. But oh, the things I learned from her when sorrow walked with me. May Almighty bless each one of us. Amen.